Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are completely reframing how we look at English grammar. You know those dry, dusty rulebooks you might have been forced to memorize back in school? Yeah, forget them. Instead, I want you to think of today's concepts as, well, basically powerful software upgrades for your everyday communication. We're going to take those basic, perfectly functional sentences you already use and install some brand new structural modules. It's really going to elevate your writing and speaking to a whole new level of precision and sophistication.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, upgrading nouns, adjective clauses. Then, noun clauses, ideas as objects. After that, adverb clauses, the context. And finally, the art of reported speech.
All right, let's dive right into section 1, upgrading nouns, adjective clauses.
Let's completely dejargonize this term, adjective clause. At its absolute core, it's just a describer tool. It's a group of words that acts exactly like a single adjective, but because it's a clause, it just has a bit more muscle to it. It drops in right after a noun to give the listener highly specific details about that person or thing. And the secret keys to unlocking these clauses? They're relative pronouns. You know the ones. Words like who, whom, whose, that, and which. For example, instead of vaguely saying a person, we can say a person who sweeps the floor, instantly and uniquely identifying them as a janitor. But interestingly enough, we can actually streamline things even further. You don't always need that full, sometimes clunky clause. If your subject relative pronoun, like who or that, is followed by a be verb, you can literally just delete both of them to create a sleek, fast adjective phrase. So the woman who is dressed in red instantly upgrades to the woman dressed in red. You see? Less is more, and your sentence just moves so much faster. Building on that, we have to make a pretty critical distinction: restrictive clauses versus non-restrictive clauses. Now, this isn't just some nitpicky grammar quirk. It literally changes the entire meaning of what you're saying. A restrictive clause is absolutely essential. It uniquely identifies the noun. Like, without it, we wouldn't have a clue who or what you're talking about. A non-restrictive clause, on the other hand, is just a bonus. It's extra, kind of unnecessary information that we don't strictly need to identify the subject.
Let's look at how this actually plays out. Take this first sentence. My sister who attends KU is very shy. Here, the clause who attends KU is restrictive. Why? Well, because I have two sisters. You need that information to know exactly which sister I'm talking about. But look at the second sentence. Mary who attends KU is very shy. The name Mary already tells us exactly who it is. We've identified her. So who attends KU is just non-restrictive, extra info. And that, by the way, is exactly why we set it off with commas.
Moving right along to section 2, noun clauses, ideas as objects. So what exactly is a noun clause? Well, imagine taking an entire complex idea, complete with its very own subject and verb, and essentially shrinking it down so it functions exactly like a single solitary noun. Pretty cool, right? Often, these take the form of that clauses, and here is a golden rule to remember. There is absolutely no comma separating the main clause from that clause. It just snaps right into the sentence, acting seamlessly as a subject or an object.
Let's look at a rather dramatic example here. That Albert smoked in class annoyed the teacher. The entire first chunk, that Albert smoked in class, is literally the subject of the sentence. Now, it's perfectly grammatically correct, but let's be honest, it sounds a bit rigid. So how do we adapt this for everyday spoken English? Well, we usually take that heavy noun clause and just throw it to the very end of the sentence, dropping a dummy it at the beginning. It annoyed the teacher that Albert smoked in class. Exact same meaning, just a much more natural flow.
Okay, now I have a juicy information question for you. Why did Nick break up with Amanda? It's a standalone mystery, right? But how do we take this standalone question and actually embed it inside another sentence? How do we turn this gossipy question into a functional noun clause?
Here's exactly how it's done. Our original question relies on the helper verb did, but when we transform it into a noun clause that acts as the object of Amanda's wondering, the sentence order actually changes back to a standard subject-verb format. So we get, Amanda wondered why Nick broke up with her. We completely drop the did, and break simply shifts to broke. It seamlessly weaves that question right into the narrative.
All right, section 3, adverb clauses, the context. Let's look at how context evolves. A basic adverb is usually just a single word, right? I saw the movie yesterday. It simply tells us when. But we can upgrade that context significantly by using an adverb clause, which packs its own full subject and verb. I saw the movie before I left for Calgary. Do you see the difference there? We've gone from a simple timestamp to a complete mini-story framing the action. Adverb clauses beautifully categorize the world around us. We have clauses for place, like wherever there are computers, there is Microsoft software. We've got time, after the fruit is harvested. Cause, I didn't call her because I'm shy. Purpose, so that she could get a better job. Then there's concession, which highlights something unexpected, although Jay has a master's degree. And finally, condition, if you save your money. These really are the foundational building blocks of great storytelling. Now, to build these adverb clauses, you need the right tools. And those tools are called subordinating conjunctions. Basically, think of these as trigger words. They instantly signal to your listener that a contextual clause is about to drop. Words like because, although, unless, and while. Honestly, mastering these conjunctions is the absolute secret to linking your ideas smoothly and logically. And that brings us to section 4, the art of reported speech. Now we arrive at the final boss of our explainer. How to elegantly handle what someone else said. Let's start with the most direct method. I don't like your attitude, Joanna said to Joel. Ouch, right? This is what we call quoted speech. It uses the exact verbatim words of the speaker. And mechanically speaking, it absolutely requires quotation marks to basically fence off those words from the rest of the text. But we don't always want to pause our story for a direct quote. Often, we want to just weave their words right into our own sentence flow, and that is reported speech. Notice how, when we change the quote into a noun phrase, the quotation marks vanish completely. Joanna's direct quote transforms. Or, looking at another example, a direct defense becomes, Jill said that it wasn't his fault. The quote just kind of dissolves and perfectly integrates into the main sentence. And there are real mechanics behind that integration. When you use a reporting verb like say or tell in the past tense, like he said, the verbs inside the reported statement usually have to travel back in time. It's a literal mechanical shift. Present progressive becomes past progressive. Will softens to would. Can shifts to could. Basically, you're aligning the timeline of their quote with the timeline of your reporting. Now, handling questions in reported speech, that requires a special little trick. Especially for yes-no questions. If Mike directly asks, is the fire under control? We can't just drop the quotes and call it a day. When we report it, we have to use the magical addition of the words if or whether. So it becomes, Mike asked John if the fire was under control. Notice how the question mark disappears. The verb order flattens out into a normal statement, and the word if bridges the entire gap. Our very final upgrade handles imperatives. Orders, suggestions, or requests. A direct command like, don't touch the artworks, gets translated into reported speech by using strong reporting verbs like warn, tell, or order, followed immediately by an infinitive. So, the teacher warned the kids not to touch the artworks. It's highly efficient, and it keeps that authoritative tone without needing the exact quotes. And just like that, we've reached the end of our modules. You have successfully upgraded your grammatical toolkit. We've moved way beyond basic sentences today. You now have the actual blueprints to describe nouns with absolute precision using adjective clauses, to embed entire complex ideas as noun objects, to frame your actions perfectly with adverbial context, and to seamlessly integrate the words of others using reported speech.
You really possess an incredible amount of communication power right now, because these aren't just rules to bind you, they're structural building blocks. So I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Now that you've totally mastered the exact rules of these complex English clauses, how are you going to use them to experiment, find your unique voice, and ultimately creatively break those rules? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.